Hello, and welcome to the Built to Be Human podcast brought to you by Functional Living Academy. I'm your guide and host, Liam Gallagher. Today, I'm going to talk about something consistency. Yes, we hear about consistency a lot because a lot of times it's what life requires. But something you don't hear very much about in the wellness arena is the fact that consistency also can lead to problems. And what I mean by this is simply that no illness or issue really happens overnight. Unless you wake up from an accident or you're in a major accident, health issues are something that develop over time. So if you have back problems, there's a good chance that you've had a handful of years where you had terrible posture. It's not typically just a random experience. If you have something wrong with your heart, chances are you've been eating poorly, you haven't been getting exercise, and it's something that's cumulative. It's something that after so long, something finally gives out. So, from a functional standpoint, it's very critical to really do things on a consistent basis when you're dealing in health and wellness issues. If you really think about it, every 7 to 10 years, we replace every cell in our body. That means every 7 to 10 years, we basically have a new body. So if you have, in that 7 to 10 years, if you are giving your body highly processed foods, ultra pasteurized milk, drinking a bunch of commercial sodas, and all the bad things, all the things that we're collectively beginning to realize are really bad for our health, you are looking at sowing the seeds of your own destruction, is basically what it boils down to. Um, if you want to build powerful wellness and health, and if you want to be the best version of yourself that you can be, you need to start making decisions that feed into that positive wellness and health that you're after. When I'm working with somebody and I have them change their diet, the first thing I tell them is to change to cleaner products. So that means if you are used to eating Cheetos, go down to the health food store and find a clean, non-GMO, preferably organic product that you can replace the Cheetos with. Even sodas, instead of drinking Coca-Cola or Pepsi products, there's a couple of brands that I've used over the years. Blue Sky is a big one. Boylan's is another one. Main Root was another one that I've used. The reality is we're addicted to a lot of these foods, a lot of these products. So when we're changing our diet and we're looking to replace it with something cleaner, what that actually allows us to do is it breaks the addiction that we've developed for that product. Most commercial foods at this point, most commercial beverages at this point have things in them called excitotoxins. They're absolutely addictive. They're designed to keep you wanting more. So I used to drink commercial soda. I'm actually a type 1 diabetic, as I've said many times. And my doctors, of course, being young, I didn't know better. I listened to the doctors. They said that diet soda was the way to go for me. Unfortunately, aspartame and the synthetic sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, are so damaging to the body. But anyhow, I would drink a 12 pack or 24 pack every week of commercial soda. So when I cleaned up my diet, I switched to the brand Blue Sky, and instead of it being, $5 or $6 for a 12 pack, it was $5 or $6 for six sodas. When I first started drinking them, they were absolutely delicious, and I would guzzle one down because it was so satisfying and crisp and refreshing. But I noticed very quickly that I wasn't craving another one. Once I finished that soda, I didn't reach for another one. I may not even reach for another one in the same day. And that's when I really started to realize that, breaking off and going to a cleaner product really helps with the addiction component. And I wasn't even fully aware of how addictive our foods were until I started making these changes. But the reality of it is, as I've cleaned up my diet, and I've gotten to the point now where I'm very specific about what I put in my body, not just the cleanliness. as I've developed this and really found what worked for me, and I've literally been doing this for over 30 years now. I've cleaned up my diet to the point that it's at right now for about the last 5 to 10 years. Every handful of years, I'll clean up and tighten up, and really see what's affecting me negatively and what's really benefiting me. And as I've done this, I've realized that my health has absolutely been superb. I've still lost discs. I've got degenerative disc disease from all the compression injuries. I've had 2 discs that I've lost in the last 10 years, but I haven't actually had any sort of cold or flu or earache or even sinus infection in that 10 years. As a matter of fact, a lot of my other medical issues have really have benefited from it as well. My last 2 A1Cs were 5.9 and 5.8 respectively. But it's the consistency that matters the most. If you're going to, if you have heart problems, if you've got blood pressure issues, if you have back problems, take a look back at the last handful of years. If it's back problems, how has your posture been? Have you even paid attention to your posture at all? Have you ever had somebody help you to see if you needed to readjust how you were standing or how you were holding your shoulders? Have you considered, if you have heart problems, have you considered your diet? Have you considered the amount of exercise and activity that you utilize or get into? So all of these things, every illness that we have and that we acquire throughout our lives, typically there's warning signs. Typically there's things that we can do differently in our day-to-day life to alleviate the issue itself before it becomes a major problem. I've had multiple accidents. I've woken up in the hospital more than once. And I've been able to return to the health that I'm in as a result of this consistent effort. I talk about having had neuropathy, being a diabetic, type 1 diabetic of over 30 years. Neuropathy is pretty par for the course. And I currently have no real neuropathy at all, but it was the result of drinking a specific blend of herbs every day, 3 times a day for going on 4 years. I was really consistent with it. I was religious with it, if you will. And the reason why I did it was I firmly believe that if you give your body the right nutrients and the raw materials, and you live long enough, it can correct pretty much anything that you have going on. I've been able to prove this time and again in my own experience. The people that I've worked with have been able to prove it as well. So when you hear about consistency, I don't think it's ever really described as in detail as we would benefit from hearing. The consistency is important because it's creating better habits. But when you really start to focus in on doing things for your own health and wellness and doing them consistently, there's all kinds of quote unquote side effects that are actually really beneficial. As I've learned how to approach life for my health and wellness, being at the forefront of my issues. I can't even think of the word. It's my intention to have health and wellness. As I've continued to implement methods and utilize herbs and essential oils and specific nutrients and amino acids, I've learned that I find myself, I'm more comfortable with who I am because I have a high level of self-trust. The self-trust is the result of consistently doing things that benefit me, even if they're not my favorite thing to do, even if I'm one of the only people doing them. And the reason why it's improved my self-trust is because I've shown myself repeatedly that regardless of what I'm going through, regardless of what I find myself dealing with, I not only have the knowledge and understanding, but I also have the determination and the consistency of action in order to have the best chance overcoming it, or at least alleviating it to a point where it's not such a big deal in my life. I have moderate stenosis in my low back. When I was diagnosed with moderate stenosis, I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years ago, the doctor literally looked at me and said, what did you do? He goes, I don't normally see people with this level of stenosis until they're in their 70s or their 80s. Well, that was exciting to hear. And I do have flare-ups with it from time to time. But as a result of me getting to the gym regularly, me watching that I'm not loading my spine, I'll literally do a belt squat instead of any other sort of squat. So a combination of functionality and intelligence and specific intent is what has allowed me to have the level of health that I have. I literally had back surgery just shy of 2 years ago. It'd be 2 years, October 31st. And I've been back at the gym for a little over a year. I'm still not quite back to where I was before the back issues started, but I've made huge progress. And it's something that I'm dedicated to doing because the more I do it, the less likely I'll have other flare ups going forward. So if I'm consistently working my body the way it needs to be worked, based on how it's designed, based on what I struggle with that I'm aware of, and give myself the right nutrients and give myself any sort of herbal or natural remedy support that I may need, doing that long term is really what has allowed me to have the health that I have. When I came out of the hospital in 2006 after the frontal lobe damage, I literally weighed about 128 pounds, which is really light for me. I usually average about 170 or so. So I had a huge uphill battle. And even now, thinking back, there were points of time where I realized that it had fairly well wrecked my life. What I'd been through had fairly well wrecked my life. But the decisions that I had, the choice that I had in front of me was to either accept that that was what I was going to deal with for the rest of my life, or do everything in my power to see what I could change about it. I'm not really one to just accept things. I absolutely accepted that that's how the situation was. I accepted that I was a medical mess. I accepted the problems that I had, but that doesn't mean I accepted the prognosis. In other words, just because I accepted the fact that I had all these medical issues didn't mean I had to accept the fact that that was what was going to define my life for the rest of my existence. It had for a very, very long time. The better part of 15 or 20 years were very much defined by me overcoming and dealing with major medical issue after major medical issue. But because I've been consistent for all of these years, do I still have medical issues? Of course I do. Will I always have medical issues? Possibly. That's a possibility. But here's the thing. It's okay. I'm okay with it. Would I rather not have these things going on? Of course, I'd rather not have these things going on. But at the same time, I've been able to manage and I've been able to overcome and I've been able to inspire others to do the same. And it's been the consistency of effort that's really afforded me all of those more than anything else. So if you are faced with taking a medication for the rest of your life, and that medication comes with side effects, and that medication typically means you're going to end up on other medication at some point in your life, even if it's just to correct the issues that you've sustained as a result of taking medication, you're looking at treating symptoms for the rest of your life. Or you could attempt something a little different, and you could start giving your body, or at least the body systems that are acting up, the nutrients and raw materials that it needs in order to have a chance at moving beyond this stuff. If you're told that it won't happen and you believe it, of course it won't happen. But, so in other words, I was told that I would struggle walking. I was told that I would always be aggressive. I was told a whole bunch of things, but most of these things I was told because the people that I was dealing with were A, ignorant, and B, they weren't used to dealing with people that were as motivated as I've been. I readily admit that I do not know many people that could have overcome the things that I've overcome. And yet I still continue to meet people, somewhat infrequently, but regularly enough, who have had their own major issues that they've continued and struggled and really eked out a better existence than what they were told that they were going to have. I literally was just on a call yesterday, I believe, or the other day anyhow, with somebody who had a cerebral stroke, and she's got ataxia and all kinds of issues. And it's sad in its way. But the amazing thing is she's actually a bodybuilder, and she goes to competition. So that consistency of effort, and even on the phone call, she talked about how, if you continue to work towards an end goal, there's a good chance that at some point that you're going to make it. But if you find yourself in a wheelchair and you accept the wheelchair and you say, poor me, then you're never going to get up and even have a chance of walking again. So the most important thing is to respect yourself enough to have a go at seeing if you can remedy situations. Is it important to accept what's going on? Yes, because we need to deal in reality. We need to be able to identify and understand what we're dealing with. But again, that doesn't mean that just because you have this illness, it doesn't mean that what your experience is going to be it'll be. It will be if you take their medication. If you listen to them and you do all the things that they tell you to do, chances are you're going to have the experience that the doctors tell you. But if you take the situation back into your own hands and really start doing things consistently over a long period of time, you'll have a chance at doing things, at getting better, at moving beyond some of this. I mentioned a few minutes ago about how most illness does not happen overnight. I've mentioned I'm a type 1 diabetic. I had signs of an illness, I want to say probably 6 or 8 years before the diabetes diagnosis actually came through. I had a low-grade fever and a stomach ache consistently for a long time. Instead of it being believed as an illness, of course, being the early 80s, it was thought that it was a psych issue, and that my symptoms were psychosomatic. So in that 6 or 8 years before I was diagnosed as a diabetic, and now I've been a diabetic for, I think, 33 years or so now, if I want to have a chance at overcoming the diabetes, it's not going to be a quick fix at this point. I've been injecting insulin for 33 years. That's not a good thing. It's kept me alive, so that's good. But as far as me repairing my body, it's done a lot of damage. So do I do things to alleviate the diabetes? Of course I do. I do things every day of my life. And I have consistently the current routine that I'm using. I've been utilizing it for about a year and a half now. And I just added something to it. As I said earlier, my last A1C was 5.9 and the one before it was 5.8. So as a type 1 diabetic, those are impressive A1Cs. That basically means my average blood sugar for 90 days was between 115 and 118 or so. It's kind of an approximation. But previous to the year and a half of effort that I've got going on right now, I hadn't really done all that much for the diabetes itself because it's so many other issues that I needed to deal with, like my nervous system. So if it took me 4 years to repair my nervous system to the point where I can walk barefoot pretty much everywhere I go, it's going to take me quite a while of dealing with things and giving my body the right nutrients to have a chance at beating the diabetes. Do I think I will? I have a chance. Do I expect it to happen? No, I don't expect it to happen. Will I stop going after it? No, I will not stop going after it, because why would I? For a year and a half, I've been doing the same thing really, really regularly, and my A1C is under 6. Before my back surgery, I literally had the orthopedic surgeon tell me, oh, your A1C is 5.8. That's pre-diabetic. And I looked at him and said, I'm a type 1. And he really didn't even know how to respond to that. So again, the consistency of effort is what allows me to get past these issues. I do struggle with blood pressure issues. It's been on and off for at least 10 years now. And I've got an herbal blend that I utilize for my blood pressure. And after I take that blend consistently every day for a year and a half to 3 years, I'm able to stop it. I can stop the blend. And it's usually, depending on my diet, depending on my activity levels, a lot of times I'm able to go a year and a half, 3 years, possibly even 5 years without needing the herbal remedy until the next time it happens. So stress is involved, age is involved, all of these things are involved. But the more consistently I do the things that my body requires, the healthier I become, the better my experience becomes, the more trust I have in myself, and the better my existence becomes as a result. So I hope that made sense to you guys. I know it was a little bit off topic from what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, but consistency is key, and really committing to having the health and wellness that you would like to have is one of the biggest factors in people overcoming issues. I've never seen anybody spontaneously healed ever. I've been in the alternative health arena for 30 some odd years, and I've never even heard of somebody having some sort of spontaneous healing. It's always been the result of a long, dedicated and protracted approach to remedying what they've got going on. Are there times where there's huge amounts of progress that get made all at once? Of course there are. But keep in mind, those periods of huge advancement typically take a fair amount of time and effort for them to even take place at all. So, love to hear your comments. Drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to hear me talk about specifically. And until the next week, here's wishing you health and wellness.